Hi everybody, welcome to another author interview at In-House Publishing. Joining me today is Ari Stathopoulos, or as I call him, Ari Gold.
Ari Gold.
Ari Gold. Ari Gold is the author of Forever, which is the first in the series of Your Enemy, Your Friend series, Forever and Always. And today Ari has flown up from Melbourne just to have a chat to me and to you guys and let us know what his book's about and what his mission is. So let's start with that, Ari. What is Forever? Tell me what it is.
Well, I mean, Forever is book one of a two-book series. It deals with personal relationships. It deals with happiness. Everything I've written, this piece of work, is about departing from convention. It's about learning that. It's about unlearning. It's about unlearning everything that you think is good or right in the world. It's about unlearning behaviour, it's about unlearning what people tell you, it's about unlearning how you feel about things, how you approach things. It's just about unlearning. It's a smash in the face to every conventional notion of being who we are in our personally and in communities. I wanted to bring that up not because I hate all that, because I don't. It just happens to be the best way to trigger visceral responses.
The great thing about the relationship that's formed between publisher and author is that you end up friends. You end up being able to speak freely and speak openly, and that's what we've been able to do. It's like, I've loved the whole Ari Gold thing. I've loved that you've referenced that in here.
Yeah.
That's pretty special to me. But I think what the mission behind this book was rather remarkable for me, because you come from an industry that, like, from what I know of you, just doesn't suit your personality, yet you absorb yourself with it. How can you go from a career in IT to developing a book that's got a very heavy self-awareness factor?
Yeah, it was unintentional, completely unintentional. I mean, I got myself into IT to make a living. I had an enthusiasm for technology, for business, but I think that for most of my life I've been a little unsettled, a little disenchanted, couldn't really understand why. I mean, I made various efforts in different kinds of endeavours to achieve what I considered to be a conventional sort of success, and I kept on kind of falling over, but not so much on my face, just not reaching, perhaps in the conventional sense, of goals that I'd set for myself.
So your true potential was not realised?
My true potential from the perspective of what I knew it to be, as opposed to what I might be conveying it to be because of how I was living my life, because of who I was being. And so I started looking into that. I looked at all the relationships that I had leading up to my first marriage. I've been married twice, as you know. My first marriage did not work out very well at all. It didn't last long, and I couldn't really understand why, because I sort of followed a pattern that had been set for me. Really work hard at it, put yourself right into it. Once you find that person, that one person, everything will sort itself out. And if you're fighting a lot, it's because that has to happen so you can get to know each other. But I felt, far better just moving on, really, because that wasn't working.
Yeah.
To cut a long story short, I mean, it prompted me to ask questions. And I ran into a person over the phone. I was cold calling from a business that I began a long time ago that also didn't work out. And she said a few things to me that made me think about whether everything around me was occurring the way it was occurring because of me rather than because of everything around me. So I was constantly pointing outside of myself to blame people or events for effectively being unsuccessful, or for not being able to convey myself or to be 100% of the person that I knew I could be. Wasn't tapping into my capacity.
Okay.
So I started on a quest, and a lot of people do, and I'm running into a lot of people now that I've written the book, right? And we're having these conversations. But the quest wasn't an intentional search to become an author or to write something great or eloquent, or it was just to vent my frustration, to try and reconcile what I understood was possible with my life at the time. Why don't things gel? And I wasn't unhappy. I haven't had a bad childhood per se. I wasn't badly treated. There's been no violence in my family. I've got wonderful parents, migrant parents who have worked hard and tried the best that they could to bring up 3 kids.
So you haven't come from any dysfortunate background.
Nothing like that.
And we've talked about this, about the pursuit of happiness and how that's a joke. It's actually, there's no pursuit. Happiness is right there in front of us.
It's right there in front of you. Happiness, you are born, and unless you have a medical condition of some kind, right? What I submit, what I propose is that we are all born fundamentally happy, with a capacity to be happy, to be content with us and with everything around us. And somehow what is nurtured into us is that we need to find happiness by searching for it somewhere else. It's either by buying something or becoming somebody else, or taking on a characteristic or a personality trait that has been portrayed to us as the ideal image. And what I've really discovered, in summary, is that it doesn't really exist. There's nothing to find. There's nothing to search for. I say to people, your personal happiness is everywhere that your personal unhappiness is not.
That's good.
If you peel that away, right? You peel that away, what are you left with, really? There's no discontent. I started scribbling all this stuff down. Fortunately, as the case may be, I ended up with 2 pages about 5 or 6 years ago of absolute nonsense. 2 A4 pages of total nonsense. I was confusing how I felt with what people were doing around me, with my work, with politics, with education, and it was just a mess. And I read through it thinking, well, I'm just a mess, because I can't articulate a single thought clearly. That's kind of what happened. So I put it down, went back to work, and just focused on everyday stuff, as you do. But I felt the need to keep going. And of course, 6 years later, what I think I've pulled together is a framework for living.
Very much so, and it's been available for sale through your website, through our website, and through Amazon, and we've all been very busy fulfilling orders. What's the feedback been?
I've had great feedback. It's flying off the shelf. I have a fantastic review on Amazon from someone I do not know.
That was remarkable. I just read this morning. If you guys get an opportunity, go to Amazon.com. Look at Ari's book Forever and read this review. It's eye-opening stuff. And I think I was actually asking them what the feedback's been, but I'm going on a tangent. You've confronted some real personal insights for people, and I feel that you're going to get one of 2 things happen here. Either they're going to love you, or they're going to not love you. They're going to hate you. Because they're going to be upset that you've made them confront certain parts of their lives that probably they were afraid to. Would that be a fair assessment?
It's a very fair assessment. I think if you're on the fence after you've read the book, you're either so disconnected that it's going to make no difference anyway, or you have made a decision to step away from this material completely because you might be afraid of what you will find.
That's right. But I think anyone that picks up a personal development, a self-help, or a mind, body, spirit book is on the road to some sort of discovery. And I think that if you do get people that are sitting on the fence with this, then they'll be very few and far between.
I think so. I don't expect anyone will.
I'm looking forward to reading more good and bad feedback. So the inspiration for writing this really came from looking at your own life and finding parts of it that just make sense. Is that what we're saying here?
Yeah, all of it didn't make sense.
Okay.
My relationships, and I say the book is about so many things that for me it's become very difficult to describe in a sentence. My elevator pitch is still a failure.
We'll work on that, brother.
We'll work on that. Because what happened is I fall into a pattern where I try to give you everything that I know, everything that I've discovered in a few sentences, so I don't lose you. But there's so much to say. So I try to describe it as a book that is a way of life framework. It is essentially about relationships. Forever is about the life partner relationships, and always is about the relationship that you have with yourself. I think they're the 2 most critical aspects of the book to convey, because together the book explores 5 key themes. So that's important to say. It explores greater awareness, emotional freedom, personal happiness, my favourite, relationship madness, and profound serenity. And it does that through various lenses, but specifically lenses about relationships. So that's the way that I kind of try and connect with my audience. I do talk about science and politics, and I reference a lot of information, and I've got some wonderful quotes in there from people that most of us would be familiar with. But essentially it's the looking glass is relationships, because I think that all the emotions tied into relationships, like jealousy and anger and all those things that we go through, they are emotions that most of us will understand. I talk about various aspects of life, like marriage, and I think I say, I'm not sure whether it's in forever or always, but somewhere I say, if you're married and you're happy, it's not because you're married. It's because you're happy. That distinction it's such a simple distinction to make, and yet it's so elusive for many people who are constantly looking for that one thing inside the other. But if you separate them, they become so clear. At least that's what happened to me. I started distinguishing and separating information in those terms, and it all became clearer to me.
This doesn't happen very often, where I'm sitting here and I'm doing an interview. I know that there's and you've made me reflect on something quite deep for me. I love my wife. She's an amazing woman. I hope you get to meet her very soon.
So do I.
And I'm very happy in my life. As everybody that knows me knows, I love my job, I love what I do, and I love my family, obviously. And I'm just exploring what you just said, and I stuff is dawning on me as we're talking.
Yeah, it happens to me.
This is creativity. This is what it's all about. Is that when you've got this kind of dialogue happening, and you've been able to put it down on paper and publish it in some form, but then to have regular conversations about the meaning behind it, you start triggering thoughts and emotions in people that maybe that is the end game. Is that
is the game.
Yeah.
The game is not to tell you how to live your life. It's to give you an insight into mine, introduce the human being, and then to slowly chip away at everything that you think is real, because I challenge the idea of everything any one person thinking being real. I think it's about perspectives.
Yep.
And most of us tend to stay inside a box thinking that we're not doing so, because the ingrained beliefs that we have taken on over the duration of our youth become real. They become interwoven with our identity. In fact, when we hear information that conflicts with ingrained beliefs, we tend to immediately dismiss it, especially if it conflicts with our preferences as well. We do that because the chemicals that fire in the brain happen to be the same chemicals that fire when we are in a physically defensive posture. So we do that because it challenges our sense of identity. If I said to you, this happens to me a lot, I had to question vegetarianism because I decided to stop eating meat for whatever the reason. But then when I presented my reasons to people who queried me, they would challenge me on it as though I was somehow asking them for a battle or a brawl, or I wasn't interested. I was just expressing why. But for some reason they took it on as, and they still do. They take it on as an insult, and I think it's because of the same reason I just explained. That what happens inside of us is we have confused. A lot of us have, through our upbringing, our identity, who we are, our personal value of ourselves with what we do. We don't separate, right? And so it might sound like I'm insulting you antagonistically when I say, that's how it's perceived. I say, look, I don't do what you do anymore, I do something different. And people go, well, hang on a second, why do you do that? And there's no reason to ask why I do that, because all I've done is stop eating meat.
I believe the right response would be good for you.
Exactly, right? Instead of challenging my decision, okay? So observing that behaviour made me realise that there's more to find, more research to do, more to understand about people. And so I've come up with a number of different insights. I mean, that's just one of them. There's another one. My personal favourite is the fact that most people think that they love their partner and their children without conditions. Oh, I love him unconditionally. Oh, I love her unconditionally. I say that's nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
Keep going, bro.
Right?
Keep going.
Because, do you know how many friends I have, because I ride a motorbike, as you know, and I love to do that. Yeah. And I'm a very careful rider. I take some risks, but, I love the thrill of it. And I have friends who I've had for a long time, two in particular, who aren't allowed to get back on a motorbike. And if they do, their relationship will suffer a little bit, because there'll be arguments and, debates or whatever about their safety and, So there are conditions, and that's just. I mean, I use the motorbike riding as one of the very easy ones to comprehend and to convey. But there are some very, very, very strong conditions that we put on each other.
You can often find that with alcoholism.
Yeah.
A partner may have given up drinking, and the opposite partner has said, "Well, if you ever start drinking again, this is over."
This is over. Exactly.
And even though hey, look, I won't give up drinking, and I accept I'm an alcoholic. I take on what you're saying, but I'm also doing it for me.
Yeah.
But it's still a condition. So that's a very good point.
Well, can I just extend on that a little bit?
Yeah, bro.
Because that's an easy one, right? And I held that one out there to get the conversation going.
Yeah.
I'll get it started. But so I'm from a migrant background, Greek Orthodox parents, and there are some very real expectations that my parents brought into my life about, for example, what I would name my children.
Really?
My father expected that my firstborn, if it would be a boy, that I would call my firstborn after my father. And what I saw, so I'll use that as an example, just because the motorcycle example is easy to get, and you can easily step away from that saying, well, it's not that much of a condition, but what about the condition that emerges as part of my identity without me realizing that it has done so, me actually believing it was my choice when I imposed that condition onto my wife, who wants to call my child Jackson. It isn't even something I created. Like if I was born miraculously in a vacuum in space, at no point in time would I approach the other person born in that vacuum who I decided to marry with a condition about what we would name our children. If there was no other influence, I would probably just say, what should we call our child? What do you think? And to make her happy, I might say, sure, Jackson's a great name. Let's go with that, because there's no impact that is on me that is conflicting with an ingrained belief, and most of us are reacting and responding to ingrained beliefs that we don't even know are driving us, and that is one of them, and especially in migrant communities like the Greek community or communities that bring with them those traditions, right? Culture,
it does. The culture, religious beliefs. I mean, it all comes into the relationship in some aspect. Okay, let's talk about something a little bit different here. Publishing a book. This is new territory for you.
Yeah.
You've had a great team of people behind you.
I have.
And you've learned a lot. What I've loved about
Still learning.
You're a sponge though.
Yeah.
You absorb this stuff, you're quickly asking questions, you're quickly strategizing.
Yeah.
So I like the way that your brain works from a promotional level. What was probably the best and the worst thing about bringing the book to life from a publishing perspective?
The best and the worst thing. I think the best thing by far, I don't know there's a worst thing, in all honesty. I mean, I could try and make something
Good answer, Ari.
that's really bad, but that's the truth. I mean, I have got one for you.
Okay, go.
Yeah, the worst thing was I had to accept the fact that I needed to review my book constantly and more carefully before putting it out there, and I knew that was going to mean more time, more energy, and it's been 5 years, as you know. I knocked this out and I sort of put it out, I held it as it's a masterpiece. It's ready to go to the public, but it wasn't the way it was written. I had to, typeset it, I had to engineer a cover with everyone's help, get it into production with your help and so on. The best thing has been that it has turned out to be just a wonderful piece of handiwork. I mean, it's come together.
It is impressive.
I think it's very impressive, and I have to thank all the good people, including yourself, for conspiring to sort of turn it into this finished product.
It's all part of the process, and I think that it's what I've found is that most people that have published for the first time and they've gone through a very supported process with professionals who are experts in their field, which you have done. They'll find the second one much easier because they have been guided so effectively, and and you have absorbed a lot of this really easily. So that's great. I have one final question. What is next for Ari? Obviously, always needs to be completed and published.
Always needs to be completed. Yeah.
But looking past the second part of the series, what is next for Ari Gold?
Okay, so part of this, of course, is doing a little bit of promotional work and conveying the message about what's going on with Forever. But of course, I also have to finish writing Always, because together, Forever and Always are the way of life framework that complete the loop. The first book is wonderful because I wrote it. It's wonderful. But I do make some references that I go into in a lot of detail in the second book, And I think that some of the questions that people might have when they get through this book will be answered in the second. To complete the whole picture, you need to read both. I actually wrote them sort of in reverse, and I'm publishing them the other way around, because this is the really good stuff, and the other stuff is the really good stuff, but also the harder stuff.
That's right.
Yeah. It's a little harder to get through.
And you also have aspirations to be able to speak at to groups and organisations and schools.
I do. I want to get myself out there. I want people to meet this person, maybe not in a t-shirt.
It's fine, right?
Whatever, right?
It's your message that matters.
It's my message that matters, and I'm finding that as I connect more and more with people, because about halfway through my writing, I realised something very profound and fundamental for me. I realised that, because I was a different person, by the way. I'm not this guy. I wasn't this guy, or maybe I always was, and I just couldn't find him. But the mantra that I have for myself is that I must engage. My reason for being is to engage every human being that I come into contact with as profoundly as possible. I've got to make every effort to do that so that he or she walks away with something of value. If I don't do that, I don't consider it a failure, but that's what I try for.
And on that note, if you want to get yourself a copy of Forever, there is the website link to Ari's website below. Also go and check out his Facebook page, where there's the link there as well. Very, very popular page. His book's available at the in-house bookstore and also on Amazon. Don't miss out. As we said, this book is for now. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
See you soon.
Ciao.